The train slowed down as it reached the small town that seemed frozen in time. Dust rose from the tracks and lingered in the hot air. She stepped down carefully, her legs aching from the long journey. Every step sent a sharp pain through her body, but she kept going because she had no choice. The station was almost empty except for a few travelers and a man sitting on the bench watching the platform. His hat shadowed his face, but she noticed the way his eyes followed her. He did not rush to speak, he simply watched. And something in his calm manner made her feel slightly less alone. Her bag was heavy and worn, and she adjusted the strap across her shoulder, feeling every inch of her exhaustion. She had been on the train for hours, moving from one place to another, running from something she could not name out loud. The town looked small, its buildings weathered and quiet. The streets were dusty and lined with wooden shops and houses that had seen better days. She tried to remember the directions she had been given, but the words felt distant and confusing. She stopped for a moment, taking a deep breath and trying to gather her strength. Her head throbbed and her chest felt tight, but she forced herself to keep moving. The man got up from the bench and walked toward her, his steps deliberate and steady. He did not speak at first, only reached out to take the bag from her hands. She hesitated, her pride telling her she could manage on her own, but her body said otherwise. She finally nodded, letting him carry it for her. The bag felt lighter in his hands than it had in hers, and she realized how tense she had been holding it. He did not ask questions or demand answers. He simply led her down the street at a slow, careful pace. The sun was bright overhead and the heat made her feel dizzy. She followed, leaning slightly on him when a wave of fatigue hit. Her feet hurt, and she wished she could sit somewhere. But the buildings looked empty, and she felt nervous about asking strangers for help. They walked past the general store and a small bakery. The smells of bread and herbs reached her, but she did not have the energy to stop. Her thoughts wandered back to the events that had brought her here, the exhaustion and the fear that had driven her to leave the train earlier than planned. She kept her eyes on the ground, afraid of meeting anyone's gaze, afraid they would see how lost she felt. The cowboy, as she came to think of him silently, did not speak much. He walked beside her, steady and calm, and every so often he would glance at her to make sure she was keeping up. His presence was quiet but firm, as if he had all the time in the world to help her. She found herself relaxing slightly in his company, the tension in her shoulders easing as they moved through the town. After a few blocks, they reached a small inn. It was not fancy, but it had a porch with rocking chairs and a sense of stability that was comforting. He helped her up the steps and carried her bag inside. The lobby was simple, with wooden floors and a few chairs. The innkeeper looked up, and the cowboy explained without needing to say too much. She felt grateful and embarrassed at the same time. She was used to managing alone, but she had learned that sometimes people were willing to help. She let them. He guided her to a small room with a bed and a window that looked out over the town. The air inside was cooler, and she finally allowed herself to sit down. Her legs felt like jelly, and her back ached from the long journey. The cowboy placed the bag down and stepped back slightly, giving her space, but still remaining nearby. She looked at him, trying to find words to thank him, but they felt inadequate. He only nodded, a slight movement that said everything without saying anything. She realized that she had been holding so much tension and fear that just having someone there who did not judge or rush her was a relief beyond words. For a while, they sat in silence. She listened to the sounds of the town outside, the distant clatter of horseshoes on the street, the soft murmur of voices, and felt a strange sense of calm begin to settle over her. The pain in her body was still there, but the weight in her chest started to ease. She did not have to face everything alone anymore. Someone was here, someone steady, someone who would help without asking for anything in return. She thought about the journey that had brought her here. The train, the long hours, the fear of the unknown, and the need to keep moving. Every step had been a struggle, but now she could rest, even if only for a moment. The cowboy remained in the room, quietly waiting, and she realized that she did not have to explain herself yet. She could simply exist in the space he had created with his quiet kindness. The afternoon sun began to fade, and the shadows grew longer in the room. She watched the light shift across the walls and felt a small sense of hope. The town outside seemed less intimidating now. The sounds of life, the distant voices, and the movement of people and animals gave her a sense of connection she had not felt in a long time. She realized that even though she was far from everything she knew, she was not completely alone. As she leaned back on the bed, the cowboy stepped closer with a small cup of water. She took it with trembling hands, grateful for the simple act of care. It was not just the water, but the thoughtfulness. The attention to her needs without words or demands that made her feel seen. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to breathe fully, to let go of some of the fear and exhaustion that had been her constant companions. They spent the next hour in quiet, simple moments. She rested, and he moved around the room, fixing small things, making sure she was comfortable. There was no rush, no pressure, just a steady presence that made her feel safe. She thought about how unusual it was to find someone so patient and understanding, someone who could offer help without expecting anything in return. Evening came, and the room grew cooler. The sounds outside changed to the soft calls of people finishing their day. She felt a strange mix of relief and apprehension. Relief that she had found a place to rest and someone she could trust. Apprehension about what the next days would bring. She did not know how long she would stay, or what challenges lay ahead, but for the first time in a long while, she felt she could face them. The cowboy prepared a simple meal for her, placing it carefully on the small table in the room. She ate slowly, savoring each bite, realizing that she had not eaten properly for most of the day. The care he had taken in preparing the food was not lost on her. It was another way he showed kindness, not through grand gestures, but through thoughtfulness and attention to her needs. After the meal, she leaned back and felt the exhaustion wash over her again. Her body ached, but her mind was clearer than it had been for days. She realized that the journey was not over, but she had found a place to pause, to gather strength, and to begin facing what came next. The cowboy remained nearby, quietly ensuring that she was comfortable. A steady presence in the room that felt increasingly like a safe haven. She closed her eyes for a few moments, letting the quiet fill her senses. The pain and fear were still there, but they were no longer overwhelming. She had been seen, cared for, and guided through the first difficult steps of this new chapter. The journey had been hard, but it had led her here, to this small room in a quiet town, with someone who offered help without question, without judgment. As the night fell and the sounds of the town grew softer, she allowed herself to rest fully. She did not know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a small spark of hope. She was not alone. She had found someone who would help her face the world one step at a time, and that was enough to give her strength to move forward when the morning came. The morning light crept slowly into the room, soft and gentle, touching the wooden floor and the edges of the small bed. She woke feeling slightly stronger than the night before, her body still tired but her mind a little clearer. The cowboy had left a note with a simple breakfast on the table. She ate quietly, noticing the care in each small detail, and felt a sense of calm she had not experienced for a long time. She stepped outside after breakfast, the sun warming her skin and the town stretching before her. Dust rose from the streets, and the smell of fresh bread from the bakery reached her. The townspeople moved slowly, some looking her way, some ignoring her entirely. She felt both invisible and observed at the same time, unsure of where she'd fit. The cowboy walked beside her, carrying her bag again, and she felt comforted by his quiet presence. She realized how easy it was to forget her fears when someone steady was near, someone who did not demand answers or explanations. They walked through the town, passing the small shops and houses. She noticed the way people nodded politely to the cowboy, as if they knew him, but she did not. He seemed to have a place here, a life that was simple but strong. She wondered how someone could be so calm in the middle of the world, and yet she felt drawn to that calmness, almost like it was contagious. The cowboy guided her to a place where she could sit in the shade, a small park with a bench under a tree. She sank down, letting her tired body rest. The sun was warm, but the shade was cooler, and she felt a strange relief just from sitting. She watched the town slowly move around her, people going about their lives, unaware of her struggles and victories. She thought about how far she had come, how much she had carried without anyone noticing. The weight she had been carrying was heavy, and it was only in this quiet moment that she realized how exhausted she truly was. The cowboy sat beside her without speaking, giving her the space to gather herself. She looked at him and felt a mixture of gratitude and hesitation. She wanted to ask questions, to know more about him, but she also knew that their relationship was fragile, built on trust that had not yet formed completely. She decided to let it be, to simply sit and feel the quiet strength he offered. They walked again, slowly exploring the town. He pointed out places she might need, the market, the well, and a small place where she could wash. She took notes silently, grateful for the guidance, without feeling pressured. He seemed to understand that she needed small steps, that rushing would only make her anxious. She began to trust him more, feeling a tiny spark of hope that she could rebuild some sense of stability here. They returned to the inn in the afternoon. She spent some time resting. The pain in her body was still present, but it no longer consumed her completely. She felt stronger, ready to face the world outside the room. The cowboy brought her some fresh water and some bread, small acts that showed care without words. She realized that it was not just the food or water, but the thoughtfulness behind it, the awareness of her needs that mattered most. Later, he suggested they walk to the outskirts of town, a place with open fields and the sound of the wind moving through the grass. She agreed hesitantly, unsure if she had the strength, but he waited patiently as she moved slowly. When they reached the edge of the town, she stopped and looked around. The fields stretched wide, the horizon clear and open. For a moment, she felt a sense of freedom she had not known in a long time. The world felt bigger than her pain, bigger than her fears, and for the first time she thought that maybe she could breathe without carrying the weight of everything on her own. He did not speak much during the walk, only guiding her when the path became uneven or when the ground was too hot. His quiet presence was reassuring, and she began to notice small details she had ignored before. The way the light hit the grass, the sound of birds moving through the sky, the smell of earth after a recent rain. It felt as if the world was alive again, and she was beginning to notice it. As the sun began to lower, they turned back toward the town. She felt a little tired, but she also felt a growing sense of confidence. The journey had been hard, but she was starting to see that with support, she could take the steps she needed. She realized that trust was not easy, but it could be built slowly, one quiet moment at a time. The cowboy walked beside her, steady and patient, and she knew that she was not alone anymore. Back at the inn, she rested and reflected on the day. The small victories, the quiet moments of care, and the presence of someone who did not judge made a difference she could not fully explain. She realized that healing did not happen all at once, but in small, gentle ways, through trust, patience, and quiet acts of kindness. She began to feel that she could face tomorrow and the day after with a little more strength and a little more hope. The evening came, and the town grew quiet. The air was cooler, and the inn felt safe. By the window, and watched the fading light, thinking about the journey that had brought her here. She had traveled far, through pain and uncertainty. And yet, she had found a place where she could rest, and someone who could help her without asking anything in return. It was a strange and comforting thought that someone could care so simply and completely. The cowboy prepared a simple supper, placing it carefully on the table. She ate slowly, savoring not just the food but the care behind it. He watched quietly, ready to help if she needed, but not pressing her. She realized that strength came in different forms, sometimes in quiet acts of service, sometimes in the patience to simply wait. She felt grateful for his presence, for the gentle way he had allowed her to exist without pressure, and for the small steps he had guided her to take. Night fell, and the town grew still. She lay down on the bed, feeling tired but peaceful. The pain in her body was still there, but her mind was clearer, and her heart felt lighter. She thought about the day, the quiet moments, the small victories, and the presence of someone who did not judge or demand. It was a new experience, one she had not known she needed. She realized that trust and care could exist in the simplest forms. and that these small things had the power to change her day and perhaps her life. As she drifted into sleep, she felt a tiny spark of hope. She did not know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew she could face it with a little more strength, a little more courage, and the steady presence of someone who had shown her that even in pain, kindness could make a difference. She had survived another day, and for the first time in a long time, she believed that she could continue, step by step, toward something better. The next morning the air was crisp and clear, and she woke with a sense of determination she had not felt before. Her body still ached, but there was a lightness in her chest, as if the small victories of the last days had begun to add up. She dressed slowly and stepped outside, where the town was coming alive with the quiet bustle of people going about their routines. The cowboy was already nearby, waiting for her with a steady presence that made her feel grounded. He nodded at her, and together they walked through the streets at a pace that suited her, the sun warming their backs, and the wind carrying the scents of the town. They stopped first at the market, where she had to make small purchases for the day. She held her bag tightly, and the cowboy offered to carry it. She hesitated, but finally allowed him to take it again. His hands were strong but gentle, and the act itself gave her a strange comfort. They moved among the stalls, the town merchants greeting the cowboy politely. She felt invisible and observed at the same time, trying to navigate the unknown territory of small town life. The cowboy did not rush her. He pointed out the things she needed quietly and let her choose what she wanted without pressing her decisions. He carried her basket and waited patiently for her to finish each step. She realized that this was different from any help she had received before. There was no judgment, no expectation, just support and guidance. She felt a flicker of trust growing within her, that perhaps she could rely on someone in the world. Again, as they left the market, he suggested they take a walk outside of town to the hills where the view opened wide. She agreed cautiously, not sure if she had the strength to go further, but he waited for her without complaint. When they reached the top, she gasped slightly at the sight of the vast fields and open sky. The wind was stronger here, carrying with it the scent of grass and earth. She felt free in a way she had not felt for a long time. Her lungs expanded, and for a moment she felt like she could leave the worries and pain behind. The cowboy did not speak much, just stood beside her as she took in the view. He pointed out the path ahead and the way the land stretched on for miles. She realized that trust did not always need words. Sometimes it was just the presence of someone steady and reliable. He did not make demands or push her beyond what she could handle. He offered guidance, and she began to see that it was okay to take life one step at a time without rushing. He spent the day exploring the hills, walking slowly and stopping when her legs needed rest. The cowboy was patient and observant, noticing the small signs of fatigue and helping her. Without making her feel weak, she began to notice the world around her, the birds moving through the sky, the way the light shifted across the fields, and the subtle colors of the grass in the afternoon sun. She felt alive in a way she had not since the journey began. When they returned to town, she felt tired but stronger. She had faced the physical challenge and had been supported in a way that made her feel safe. She realized that strength could come from accepting help, and that courage was not just moving forward alone, but allowing oneself to lean on someone else when needed. The cowboy helped her back to the inn, carrying her bag and making sure she was comfortable before stepping back to give her space. She spent the afternoon resting and reflecting on the day. Her thoughts wandered to the journey that had brought her here, the train, the pain and uncertainty. She realized that she had survived, and even in the midst of struggle, she had found small moments of hope and care. The cowboy had not asked for anything in return, but had offered steady support, and that made a profound impact on her. Understanding of kindness and trust. Evening came, and the town grew quiet. She walked to the window and watched the sky turn shades of orange and pink. She felt a sense of peace and gratitude. She thought about the small steps she had taken, and the trust she was beginning to feel. She realized that healing was not sudden, but gradual, and could come from the quiet presence of someone who cared without expectation. The cowboy prepared a simple meal for her. Placing it carefully on the table, she ate slowly, savoring each bite and the thoughtfulness behind it. She realized that even the smallest acts of kindness could give strength and hope. When the meal was done, he moved quietly about the room, making sure everything was in order. Without disturbing her, he was patient and steady, and she began to understand that true support did not always come with words, but with consistent presence and care. Night fell, and she lay on the bed thinking about the day. She felt the exhaustion in her body, but the clarity in her mind. She thought about the hills, the walk, and the small victories. She realized that she could face more challenges with the support. She had learned to accept she did not know what the future held, but she felt a spark of confidence and courage that had been missing for so long. She drifted into sleep, feeling the steady presence of the cowboy nearby and the quiet strength that had begun to grow within her. She knew the journey was far from over, but she also knew that with patience, trust, and quiet acts of care, she could take each step as it came and slowly begin to rebuild a sense of stability and hope in her life. Next day began with a soft light spreading across the town. She woke feeling a mixture of anticipation and unease. Her body was tired, but there was an energy in her that had not been there before. The cowboy had already prepared breakfast and set it on the table. She ate slowly, noticing the small details, the warmth of the bread, the fresh water, and the quiet care that went into the simple meal. She felt gratitude and a strange sense of courage growing within her. After breakfast, he suggested they take a walk along the edge of the town. She nodded hesitantly, unsure of what she would encounter, but willing to try. He carried her bag again and walked beside her in a calm manner that allowed her to feel safe without pressure. As they moved through the streets, she noticed a few new faces and felt slightly nervous. Their eyes lingered a moment too long, and she felt the weight of judgment or curiosity. She leaned a little on the cowboy, feeling reassured by his steady presence. They reached the outskirts where the path led toward the open fields and rolling hills. The wind was stronger here, carrying scents of grass and earth. She inhaled deeply, feeling the freedom in the air. She walked carefully, following the cowboy who guided her. Steps over uneven ground and through patches of soft soil. The journey was not easy, and her legs ached, but the determination to move forward grew stronger with each step. As they climbed a small rise, she saw something in the distance that made her heart tighten. A figure from her past had arrived in the town, someone who had caused her pain and uncertainty. She froze, feeling fear and doubt surge through her. She looked at the cowboy, whose calm gaze met hers, and felt a flicker of hope that she could face this situation with support. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, knowing she did not have to face it alone. The figure approached cautiously, and the town seemed to pause around them. She felt the weight of old memories and unresolved fear, but also the strength that had been building within her over the past days. The cowboy stayed close without interference, giving her the space to confront the situation at her own pace. She spoke slowly and firmly, her voice trembling but clear, expressing her boundaries and making it known that she would not be moved by past pain. The figure hesitated and then retreated slowly. She felt relief wash over her, and a sense of empowerment she had not experienced in years. The cowboy led her to a small stream nearby where they could sit and rest. The sound of running water was soothing, and she felt her pulse slow. She looked at him and realized that his presence had been more than support. It had been a shield and a guide, allowing her to face something she would have avoided alone. The courage she felt now was intertwined with the quiet strength he had given her through patience, care, and understanding. They spent the afternoon by the stream, talking quietly about small things. The conversation was gentle and slow. She realized that the cowboy's presence was not just physical but emotional. He listened without judgment, never pressing her for details or explanations. She found herself sharing small fragments of her story, her fears and her hopes, and he absorbed them with calm attention. She realized that trust was growing in ways she had never allowed herself to feel before. As they walked back to town, she noticed the world differently. The houses and streets seemed less intimidating. The townspeople's eyes no longer carried the same weight of scrutiny. She felt a sense of belonging forming slowly, a sense that she could exist in this space without fear. The cowboy remained near her, steady and patient, and she began to understand that connection did not need to be loud or dramatic to be meaningful. It could be quiet, steady, and transformative. Returning to the inn, she felt the familiar comfort of the room. Her body ached slightly, but her spirit felt lighter. She rested for a while before the cowboy prepared a simple meal, placing it on the table with careful attention. She ate slowly, savoring not just the food, but the thoughtfulness behind it, the simple act, reinforced the feeling of safety. And the growing trust between them. Night fell and the town grew still. The sky was clear and filled with stars. She walked to the window and felt a sense of peace. Mixed with a lingering awareness of the challenges ahead, she realized that life would not be without difficulties, but she had discovered an inner strength and a companion who had helped her recognize it. She lay on the bed, reflecting on the events of the day, the confrontation, the courage, the small victories, and the quiet acts of care that had made it all possible. She drifted into sleep, feeling the steady presence of the cowboy nearby, and the quiet power of the experiences she had faced that day. She understood that the journey was far from over, but she now had the tools to face it. The combination of patience, care, courage, and trust had created a foundation upon which she could continue to grow and heal. Step by step, with the support she had learned to accept and the strength she had begun to find within herself. Morning light came gently through the window. She woke feeling calm and ready for the day. Her body still had aches, but her mind felt clearer and stronger than before. The cowboy had left a simple breakfast, and she ate quietly, noticing the care in each small detail. The warmth of the bread, the cool water, and the calm atmosphere of the inn gave her a sense of stability she had not felt in a long time. After breakfast, they walked through the town together at a slow and careful pace. She carried her bag lightly, and the cowboy stayed near, without pressing or rushing her. Each step through the streets made her feel more connected to the town and the life around her. The townspeople moved around them, going about their routines, but she no longer felt invisible or burdened by their gaze. She felt a quiet confidence growing inside her. They reached the outskirts, where the open fields stretched wide and the hills rolled gently into the distance. She stopped for a moment, feeling the wind on her face and the openness of the world before her. She had faced challenges before, and now she felt capable of moving forward. The cowboy waited patiently as she breathed in the fresh air and felt the freedom in the wide landscape. They walked slowly along the path, and she noticed the small beauty in the world around her, the birds moving through the sky, the sound of the wind through the grass, and the subtle colors of the earth. All seemed more vivid than before. She felt present and alive for the first time in a long while. The cowboy guided her gently over uneven ground, helping her when needed, but never rushing her. After some time, they stopped by a small stream. She sat on the grass and watched the water flow. She felt peace in the simple movement of the water and the quiet sounds around her. She realized that she had come far from the pain and uncertainty that had marked her arrival. The courage and trust she had gained were reflected in the calm of the moment and the strength she felt within herself. They spoke quietly about small things, the conversation easy and gentle. She shared some thoughts and feelings she had kept hidden for a long time, and the cowboy listened without judgment. He offered no advice unless asked, and simply gave his attention and presence. She realized that true connection was not always about words, but about the steady support of someone who truly cared. As the sun moved lower in the sky, they turned back toward the town. She felt tired, but fulfilled. Her body ached from the walking, but her heart felt lighter. She understood that healing came slowly in small steps, and through the quiet acts of care and patience. She had experienced, she had learned to trust again, to rely on someone, and to take one step at a time without fear. Returning to the inn, she felt the comfort of the familiar room. The cowboy prepared a simple meal for her, placing it on the table carefully. She ate slowly, appreciating the thoughtfulness and attention in each small detail. After the meal, they spent time sitting quietly, enjoying the calm atmosphere. The day had been full of small victories and moments of courage that she carried with her. Evening came, and the town grew still. She walked to the window and looked out at the fading light, feeling gratitude for the journey and the support she had received. The challenges were not gone, but she now had the tools and strength to face them. The cowboy remained near, offering quiet reassurance without intruding. She felt a deep sense of trust and safety in his presence. Night fell, and she lay on the bed, reflecting on the events of the past days. The journey had been hard and filled with uncertainty, but she had discovered inner strength and the value of support and care. She realized that she did not have to face life alone, and that patience, kindness, and trust could help her overcome challenges, she felt a sense of hope for the future and a quiet confidence that she could continue to grow and heal. She drifted into sleep feeling peaceful and safe. The presence of the cowboy nearby was comforting, and she felt the steady power of the experiences that had shaped her in the last days. The journey was far from over, but she understood that with courage, trust, and small acts of care, she could face each step ahead. She had found strength in herself and in the quiet support of someone who had helped her rediscover hope and the possibility of a better future. The morning was quiet, and the town seemed peaceful. She woke feeling the light in her chest and the calmness that had grown over the past days. Her body was still tired, but her mind was alert and ready for the day. The cowboy had prepared a small breakfast and left it on the table. She ate slowly, appreciating the warmth of the bread, the fresh water, and the quiet care that went into the simple meal. After breakfast, they walked through the streets of the town. She carried her bag lightly, and he stayed near her, offering support without demanding anything. The sun was warm, and the air carried the scent of grass and earth. She noticed the small details of life in the town, the children playing quietly in the distance, the soft murmur of voices, and the way the light shifted across the buildings. She felt present in a way she had not felt for a long time, and it made her heart lighter. They left the town and walked toward the open fields, where the hills stretched wide and the sky seemed endless. The cowboy moved beside her, guiding her steps over uneven ground. She felt strong enough to walk without leaning on him as much, and that gave her a sense of pride. She realized that she had come far from the exhaustion and fear that had marked her arrival, and that each small step forward was a victory in itself. They walked. She thought about the life she had left behind, the pain, the uncertainty, and the long journey to reach this place. She realized that though the past could not be changed, she could choose how she moved forward. She felt a quiet determination growing within her that gave her courage to face whatever challenges might come. She looked at the cowboy and felt gratitude for the steady support he had given without expectation or demand. They reached a small grove of trees near a stream, and she paused to sit on the grass. The sound of the water was soothing, and she felt a sense of calm wash over her. She noticed the small details, the way the sunlight filtered through the leaves, the gentle movement of the branches, and the soft rustle of the wind. She felt connected to the world around her in a way she had not felt in years, and it made her realize how far she had come. The cowboy sat beside her, and they shared a quiet moment together without speaking. She realized that trust had grown between them, not through grand gestures or dramatic words, but through the small, consistent acts of care and presence. He did not intrude or push. He simply offered a steady presence that allowed her to feel safe and supported. They spent the day exploring the fields and hills, walking slowly and taking breaks when she needed to rest. She noticed the strength returning to her legs and the lightness in her step. She began to feel capable of doing more and facing challenges that had seemed impossible before. She realized that courage was built gradually through small acts of persistence and trust in oneself and in others. As the afternoon passed, they came across a small village on the outskirts of the fields. The town was quiet, and the people moved about with a slow rhythm. She felt a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, but the cowboy stayed near her. Offering silent reassurance, she walked confidently through the streets, noticing the details of life and feeling a sense of belonging that had been missing before. She realized that the world could be faced with courage and patience, and that support from others could make a profound difference. They found a small place to rest in the village, and she took time to reflect on the journey so far. The challenges had been real, and the pain had been deep, but the support and trust she had received allowed her to see a way forward. She realized that she could face difficulties with patience and courage, and that healing was a process built through consistent care and self-belief. Evening came, and they returned to the inn in the town where they had stayed. She felt the comfort of familiarity and the steady presence of the cowboy. She realized that she no longer feared the unknown in the same way, and that the trust she had built allowed her to face the world with a sense of hope and confidence. The simple acts of care, the quiet moments of support, and the small victories all combined to give her a foundation for growth. Night fell, and she lay in bed reflecting on the day and the progress she had made. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey, the support, she had received and the strength she had discovered within herself, she realized that life was a series of steps forward, each building on the last, and that trust and courage were cultivated through patience, care, and experience. She drifted into sleep, feeling safe and supported. The presence of the cowboy nearby was comforting and reminded her that she did not have to face the world alone. She understood that challenges would continue to come, but she now had the tools to face them with confidence and calm. She had discovered the power of quiet support, trust, and patience, and felt ready to continue building a life of stability, hope, and strength, step by step into the future. Sun rose softly over the town, casting a warm light across the streets and buildings. She woke feeling a gentle energy that she had not experienced before. Her body was still weary, but her mind was alert and ready for the day the cowboy had left. Breakfast prepared as usual, and she ate slowly, appreciating the warmth of the food and the care put into it. She felt gratitude and a sense of stability that grew with each passing day. After breakfast, they walked through the streets of the town. She carried her bag lightly, and he stayed close, offering support without intrusion. The town was beginning to feel familiar, and she noticed the small details, the way people moved through the streets, the soft chatter of voices, and the smell of fresh bread from the bakery. She felt connected to the world around her, and it gave her a sense of calm confidence. They left the town and followed a path toward the open fields. The hills stretched wide, and the sky seemed endless. She walked with a steady pace, feeling stronger and more capable than before. The cowboy guided her carefully over uneven ground and rough patches, allowing her to navigate the terrain safely. She realized that she was beginning to trust her own strength, as well as the support offered by the cowboy. As they moved further, they came across a quiet grove of trees. She sat on the grass, taking in the sights and sounds around her. The wind rustled through the leaves, and a soft song of birds filled the air. She felt a sense of peace and freedom. She had faced so many challenges to reach this point, and now she could appreciate the small joys of the world without fear or hesitation. The cowboy sat beside her, and they spent a while in quiet reflection. She realized that trust had grown not through words or declarations, but through consistent care and shared moments of stillness. He had never demanded or judged. He simply offered his steady presence, and that allowed her to feel safe. She understood that true connection could be quiet and patient and still powerful. They walked through the fields, exploring small paths and discovering the subtle beauty of the landscape. The sunlight shifted, and the shadows moved slowly across the hills. She felt the strength returning to her body and a lightness in her step. She realized that the courage and confidence she had gained were not fleeting, but built gradually through experience and support. She felt capable of facing more challenges and moving forward in life. As the afternoon passed, they came across a small village on the edge of the fields. The town was calm, and the people moved with a slow rhythm. She felt curiosity and a little apprehension, but the presence of the cowboy nearby made her feel safe. She walked confidently, noticing the life around her and the details that had seemed intimidating before. She began to feel a sense of belonging and acceptance. They found a quiet place to rest in the village, and she took the time to reflect on her journey so far. She had faced exhaustion, fear, and uncertainty, but she had discovered inner strength and the power of patient support. She realized that healing and growth were ongoing processes, built through small, consistent actions and experiences. She felt gratitude for the presence of the cowboy and the way his steady support had guided her toward confidence and hope. Evening came, and they returned to the inn. She felt the comfort of the familiar surroundings and the calm that had grown over the past days. The cowboy prepared a simple meal and placed it on the table. She ate slowly, savoring the food and the thoughtfulness behind it. She reflected on the small victories of the day, the moments of courage, and the trust she had built. She realized that each step forward, no matter how small, contributed to the life she was beginning to build. Night fell, and she lay on the bed, feeling a sense of peace and accomplishment. She thought about the journey, the challenges she had faced, and the progress she had made. She understood that life would continue to bring difficulties, but she now had the strength and the trust to face them, she felt ready to continue moving forward step by step. Supported by the quiet presence of the cowboy and her own growing confidence, she drifted into sleep, feeling safe and supported. The steady presence of the cowboy nearby and the experiences of the day gave her comfort and strength. She realized that growth and healing were gradual but powerful, and that trust, patience, and consistent care could help her face the world with courage and hope. She had discovered the value of connection, the strength within herself, and the possibility of a future built on resilience and trust.